Okay, welcome back to the stream. I'm gonna go over. I played in the Tennessee State Chess Championship a couple weekends ago. I've kind of looked through some of my games, kind of did some annotation on some of them, and we're gonna go through each game here, and I kind of show you where I played all right and where I messed up, and we'll kind of just go through the games. So again, this is the 2020 Tennessee State Championship. It's the first time it's ever been played online due to all the COVID and health things going on right now. So they played a 5 round Swiss, 30 minute with 5 second increment. So a 30 plus 5 round Swiss. They got two divisions. They have the open division and they have the under 1600 division. So I'm currently playing at about 1750 on Lichess. This is where they hosted at. Lichess, a great website. That's where they hosted. But they went off USCF rating, so I was under 1600 on UFC rating. So that's how they paired everybody up. So I played in the under 1600 division. And just to give you an idea, I'm 40 years old. I played a lot of scholastic tournaments. I played in some adult tournaments up until my early 20s. I hadn't played a USCF rated event since 2005. So it's been 15 years since I played. So it was a little bit, I'll be honest with you, I was a little nervous starting off because I wasn't sure how everything was going to work out. But anyway, we'll get to the first game. Game number one, and when they paired us up, they paired us by USCF rating, so I was kind of middle of the pack. I think there was 30 something people in this division, and I was kind of middle of the pack. So first game, I played a user on Lichess. The name was Chocolate Juice. The real name was Sam. I won't give out the last names, but the real name was Sam. And we kind of played a Queen's Gambit Decline Marshall defense setup that kind of went into a Slav Bonnet Gambit. So we'll kind of go through the moves here. I'm white. So we just played sort of a normal Queen's Gambit setup, declined, Marshall defense. So everything was pretty normal. Pretty normal game. This is, you can see here, this is pretty much at least some theory up through the first 7-8 moves. And here's kind of where here's the first time I kind of stopped and had to do some thinking. I was unsure which route I wanted to take, so I kind of wanted to take with my bishop and be up a pawn. Which looking back, I probably should have. I kind of looked at this. I kind of went back and forth. I kind of wanted to go back into the middle and sort of mess up his pawn structure. If he took with that pawn, I would take the hanging pawn. If he took with this pawn, it would kind of undermine some of the stuff going on over on the castle side. So I kind of thought about it for a few minutes, and I went ahead and took c takes d5. I think looking back and studying the layout, I kind of wish I would have took the other way, but either way, first game jitters. I was ready to sort of get some pieces taken and see how it went. So I took with c takes d5. He comes back with e takes d5. I brought the knight in. He brought the bishop down. Really not too scary here. I'm in a pin, but I'm covering 3 different ways. So nothing big on that move. I just played pawn up to kind of. I thought that would push him back because I didn't think he would want to go into these 2 squares. So he went ahead and I take back with a knight. So really pretty much the same setup. He moves the queen up, probably to get rid of some long-term pin right there. So I move the bishop back. Bishop g3, kind of putting some pressure on the queen on this diagonal, kind of see where he's going to go. I've got thoughts of coming in here with the knight. I've got some thoughts of bringing the queen over and setting up a long-term attack on this diagonal. This pawn is kind of weak. He'll eventually want to pull the knight out, so that'll leave that pawn a little weak. So I'll move that there to kind of see where he went. He decided to kind of dive into our territory. with queen b4. It's not really attacking anything. I didn't really have anywhere. I thought about bringing the knight here. Of course, again, you can attack this pawn with a knight there. You can look at that square for some forks once they get some items moved off the board. But I kind of thought that I will just move the queen, and that way I can guard this pawn and go ahead and develop this long diagonal attack. So if he moves the knight out, we've got some attacking pieces. It's good to have some setup on the long diagonals. If you get a rook behind this and a queen up here, a lot of times you can slide in a check there with a discovered attack on the queen. But either way, I moved the queen over to kind of develop a little bit more. His next move was a blunder. So the reason this is a blunder, he moved his bishop here, attacking my bishop, but he kind of limited where his queen could go. He probably had better moves. With his bishop still there, his queen really couldn't go to either one of those two squares anyway, but that piece is now under attack and not protected by anything other than the queen. So after I think about this for a minute, I thought if I can just kind of bully his queen around and get him off this diagonal, which he can't go there anyways, so if I can just get him off these two squares, then he's in trouble. So I moved the pawn up. So this really gives him, he's in trouble at this point because he can't go there because he'll get taken. If he takes here, he's just going to lose the queen. So he's in trouble when he moved that bishop there instead of making some room for his queen. He moves the queen over to a4 and proposes a queen trade. Obviously, I didn't want to do that. I was kind of wanting to push him on back, but then again, I thought I have a hanging bishop. If I can get him into an end game up a piece, I thought that was a good idea. So I took more time on this move than I took on any other move during the game on debating on whether to push that pawn up, which would force him to one of these two squares, or just go ahead and leave him some doubled up pawns and a hanging bishop. So I kind of studied on that for a while. I think looking back with a computer evaluation, the pawn move was the better move. But again, I was thinking first game jitters for me. First game I'd played in a while. I thought if I can just go ahead and get the queens off the board, he'll have doubled pawns and a hanging bishop. So I kind of went that route. He takes, I take the bishop. So at this point, we're in good shape. I think we're up. I think it's the evaluations was like +7 whenever he moved the bishop right there. So we're down to like +5 here, but it's a good situation to be in there. He moves the rook over. I think after thinking about this for a minute, I thought about go ahead and just trading some more pieces since I'm up a piece. But I didn't want to bring his rook over here. I kind of wanted to keep them kind of bottled up. So I'd kind of thought about coming back to this square and take this knight, double up these pawns. Computer says the better move was to go here. I don't think it really mattered that much. You go here and you take that the next move. If you go there, you can take that next move. I guess this is just more forcing. If you go here, he has to move his rook. If you go here, he can move the knight. So the computer liked that move better, and I understand that, but I moved there. So I moved here. He moves his knight, so now that he's attacking, I'm not really worried. I've got a piece coming in here and a piece coming in here, so it's kind of double protected. I'm fine trading off pieces. So I went ahead and moved the rook over, attacking the weak pawn. He moved his rook over. I moved my rook up so that I could double and get this pawn. He moves a rook over, giving him 2 attacking pieces over here. At that point, I'm still okay trading some pieces off because if he takes and I take, he's not really going to take back, so no big worry there. So I double the pawns. He takes with his knight, I take with my knight, and then this is sort of another blunder. The pawn was weak there, but moving it up it don't help any. It's still going to be taken for free. So he could have moved something else, I suppose. But anyway, I go ahead and take. He decides he does not want to trade, which is probably good. I move up one, protecting this pawn. He moves a pawn over, which is basically just a free pawn. So I take the pawn. He moves that rook over to protect this pawn, which was already protected and not really under attack. I've got another free pawn there. But I spotted the knight fork, and I thought I'll fork the rook fork. I'm sorry. I thought if I go here, if he moves one to the middle to attack my rook, I'm still covered by the bishop, so should be good there. He decides to take a pawn, so not sure on this move. Obviously not a good move. We take. He moves the rook over, so at this point he looks like he's giving up. So we'll just kind of show this as that was check. The bishop is guarding that square, so this is checkmate other than his one move. So he makes the move there, and then that is checkmate. So game number 1, I played Chocolate Juice. His name was Sam, or it could be a girl named Sam, I assume, but the name was Sam, and that was how the first game went. So we'll move over to game number 2, which, looking back at this game, this is the only game I was sort of disappointed in. I had a good opportunity at this to play this game out well and just made a complete, from playing a lot of blitz and bullet on stream and then go into 30 plus 5 games that were taking an hour and 20 minutes to complete was a big difference. It was a big difference in the amount of time it was taking. So I don't know if that played into some of this, and I got a little loose toward the end, but I definitely made a mistake in this game that I could have held, and this guy actually, I think, ended up finishing tied for second. I guess I forgot on the first game too. A lot of these guys, this is what's considered classical on Lichess, this time frame, and a lot of the people that played in this had never played enough games to have an established rating, so a lot of them was provisional ratings. So the first guy, it was his first ever classical game. The first guy I played, so his provisional rating was 1500. The second guy I'm playing, his rating was 1552. So like me, a lot of people probably played several games leading up to the tournament in this time frame. But anyway, I'm just going to let you know that a lot of the ratings were provisional. So the second user is Gnanathan, Nathan maybe, Nathan 1. Sorry if I mispronounced that. His or her name is really long too, so I'm not even going to attempt to mess their name up. But they did really well. I think they finished tied for second, like I said, in the whole event, and I played a good game against them that I kind of got loose in one spot, and it cost me the game. So we'll go through that. This is going to be just an old Sicilian. I'm playing black. I'm going to play the old Sicilian Lowenthal variation. So again, pretty normal setup here, I think, for a lot of Sicilian variations. So I think up to this point, nothing really out of the ordinary. I went ahead and took that pawn took that knight because he was no longer pinned. I didn't really want to retreat, and I thought I could take that and double up his pawns would probably maybe prove beneficial later. So we played theory up to about this point. Anyway, I think that everything went fairly smooth for me. I think this is just typical development again. Right here, I did make one mistake. I think I made a mistake here. I wanted to play this pawn here first. I was trying to read back through I got my notes on this other screen, so bear with me, but I was reading back through my notes, and I thought about playing this move first, and you could do a trade and a trade. And I was thinking about that before I made my last move. I should not have played this bishop here. I should have went right there at this point, and he could have done a trade. I could have done a trade. If he took, I took, and then we're up a piece. But I didn't. I played the bishop after thinking about that and just kind of totally blanked out. That allowed him to play this, and that kind of put me this pin put me in sort of a tight spot because you don't want him to take, me to take, him to take, me to take, and my king is kind of open, So it was too late, but I forced the pawn up there. He did the smart play there is to take that first and did exactly what I didn't want to do. So I went ahead and took. I kind of took in hopes that he wouldn't want to trade, and I could leave my structure intact. But of course he traded, and now my king is kind of open. So he took the pawn there, I took, and the bishop down. Looking at this point too, I think that I think I would have been better off go ahead and try to push him out here, or actually that's what I did. I think I would have been better off moving the rook here and attacking these doubled pawns. He couldn't protect them without moving up one and me taking the pawn. Um, I guess I thought that if I push up here, that he would just kind of go back and then I could play that move. Got my move order out of place a little bit, which I did several times. But so I push up, he comes down. I move up there to get my king off this back row. Just had a bad sequence of plays right here. Not really what I wanted to do. Going back and looking through the evaluation, it's just kind of a bad move after bad move right here. But we're still pretty much even, and still fairly even. So I thought quite a long time on this move too. This is move 21, and I thought quite a bit about taking this pawn versus not taking it, versus moving the rook here and still sort of coming down on that. But I guess I talked myself out of, with the engine says this is the best move. I kind of talked myself out of it because I thought after this, if he takes, then I take, then he takes, and he's kind of got he's up a pawn, and he's got one over here because I had in my mind I was going to take this pawn. But I think what I should have done was move here, let him take, me take, him take, and then take there. So that way I've got that piece is hanging, this piece is hanging. He's going to lose one more no matter how he tries to defend this. So that was the move order that I should have went through, but I did not. I decided to take on that, give him a chance to free up his structure, which he didn't do, but I thought he would end up, correcting his structure a little bit. But he's going to try to put a lot of pressure on this one. So I moved that one up so I could move my rook. He moved up again, sort of keeping the pressure up. So then I decided that there's no way to hold that one. So I'm just going to keep pushing. I traded one off, and then I went here. So now I'm finally putting the pressure here that I should have done a long time ago. But he moves back. I'm going to decide to push the pawns up, try to get him off these squares. He moves over. I move up. He moves over. And here I'm thinking about going there for a check and then coming back here, and I've got my choice of pawns, which was probably a correct way of thinking about this. But for whatever reason, when he moved here, it spooked me out of going there and doing what I wanted to. I got worried about him bringing his rook here and pushing this down and me getting over. So I move back. He gets behind it anyway. So I take this chance to kind of just go towards his rook, which he's going to move up as well. And this is where we're going into basically a theoretical draw and endgame. He moves up, I move into that spot. He has to move over to cover, and I know I can pick this pawn up and swap rooks off here and should be in a decent shape being up a pawn on this side. So that's what we do. He moves the pawn up, and right here, I kind of knew this was going to be a draw from right here. Me playing black, I didn't know this guy was going to finish second overall, but he had played well, and it was a closer game than the first game for sure, and I kind of thought I'm going to have to hold this. So when he moves, we make a couple more pawn moves, but when he moves his king there, I know that I can't be in this spot when it's my turn. I can't have to move away. Now, he can't come to either one of these because of my pawns. But I thought to myself, I need to keep an eye on this setup in these boxes here. I need to make sure that I'm not in this square when it's my turn and he's in that square. So I moved this pawn up because I didn't want him going here and then going here, because I can't go to that square or that square because of the pawns. So I didn't want him moving here. I guess I could have thought if he moved there, I can take this pawn, he can take mine, and then I could probably run over here, take this one, and get there before him, but it was going to be close, and I didn't calculate it all the way out. So I moved that up to keep him out of that square and that square. So he moves back out, and I move kind of away, knowing that he can't come any closer, kind of trying to guard against him coming down here. So he goes back, and then I just go back, and we kind of, once I went there, I knew I couldn't move again because he can come into this square now. and I can't go to this square. So I knew I had to stay in that square now. So now I'm trying to calculate the moves for our pawns on all these squares. So I move up one, he moves up one. So I took quite a bit of time here trying to figure out what I need to do, and I came across the plan of just moving that up, moving that here, sacrificing the piece, and then moving this up behind it, to where he can't move that pawn, he can't move this pawn, he can't move this one, he can move this one, but I would take it. So that kind of makes his king have to go backwards. So I sack that piece, move this piece up, and that's where we're at. So he moved, and I move away. And all I know is I can't be here when he's here and it's my turn. And I can't let him get to this square. So I keep telling myself that. So now I go back over here. He goes over there. I go back. He comes in. And I go right to the square that I said I did not need to go to. I need to go right back here. And I was actually at the point getting ready to offer him a draw. And I was sitting here thinking, I'm going to offer him a draw. I was thinking about the next game. I was thinking I'm going to be 1.5 out of 2. And right here, I could go to this square, and it would be okay. And I can go to this square, and it's okay. You can't go to this square. So, terrible mistake on my part, terrible blunder on my part, but, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, these long time controls, we're on move 46, and I don't remember the time I had left here. It looks like 20 minutes to his 28. But I just felt like this was a draw, and I got lazy and I got loose, and I played right back into that square. So when he came back here, worst case scenario, I can't go here, I can't go here, and I can't go there. So that leaves these 3 squares, and that gives him the chance to go to this square. So that is what happens. He took my piece, he moved back, he played it exactly the way he should here, and I kind of, he went that way, and I knew I had lost here, but I thought I would be able to get over to this side, but there was just no way to catch this pawn, and I lost a pretty easily drawn game on number 2. So that puts me to 1 out of 2, and we will look at game number 3. So game number 3, I'm playing against a username Star Smile on Lichess. The rating at the time was a provisional rating of 1529 at the game I played. I learned later on that this was a sister of another person that played. I think she finished tied with me for the tournament, but the way I took it, she was probably a Scholastic player, a young female player. Her name was Sunny, and this is a semi-Slav game. So we'll just kind of go through the opening. It's pretty much the Queen's Gambit decline, semi-Slav. Nothing crazy here. So I guess at this point I was going to have to trade a piece or two. I just traded into the middle, got rid of the center square, brought the rook over, kind of going to take advantage of this open file once I move. And we just kind of played pretty normal chess for a minute. She moves here, of course threatening this piece, so you get an obvious take. Take back, and then you can't take this knight because when the pawn drops in, the pawn is protected, and then it has forked your bishop and knight. So I move here, offering 2 different knight trades, and the bishop all coming in there. So I was hoping to gain a knight and a pawn. He moves his knight, or she moves her knight. I'm sorry, there to sort of keep 3 pieces pressured. I take, she takes back with her pawn, and I move the knight, or move the bishop down to b1. I mean, we're pretty even here, no big deal one way or another. This is where I made a mistake. I thought for a second on taking this, but I was kind of hoping to keep the doubled pawns. I didn't want to correct her pawn structure. I wasn't really scared of the bishop moving anywhere, but I severely overlooked bishop to c4. Me with no way to take the piece anymore. I protected bishop on c4, so that was a mistake on my part. So I ended up moving my knight here. My plans, what I was thinking, was move knight here, back up here, and I could drop that in down here protected by this rook. It also opens up that file. I missed this move here. So it is what it is. She moved there, and my evaluation went to minus 2.9 in favor of black. So I had to just basically move out of the way. I was down in exchange. It was a bad move. What can you say? So she pushes forward with the knight, threatening this hanging pawn. I move back to the center to protect. She moves the knight back. I move the knight forward. The queen goes to d7, pawn up, keeping the knight out of the square. She doubles up an attack on this one. I'm assuming she's preparing this move. I'll move the rook up to, keep an eye on that. She goes after the knight. I moved the knight back. I could have moved the knight up here, but I didn't want him moving this, or her moving this rook over and sort of having me pinned. I guess it would be net rook over, but either way. And then rook dc8. I did not want to trade, but I couldn't really get out of it, so I kind of lined up my queen back there. We trade the rooks off. Rook to c8, and I moved the queen to e5. Her next move was, and I think at this point, I think I'm like -4 right here. I'm in pretty bad shape. She makes the best move according to the computer right there, forcing these queens off the board. I thought about this for a while. There wasn't really a good move other than trading, but I just severely did not want to trade. I wanted to keep the queens because I thought as long as I had the queens on the board, I had an opportunity. So I slide the queen back, and this is where she missed a basically a game-ending move here. Which we're in a time crunch on a lot of this stuff, but she missed this move. Queen to b3. The computer evaluation saw that queen to b3, and while she was thinking about this, I thought, I wasn't really sure how. I thought this was going to be a tough move for me if she went there. I had no way to get the queen over there. If she goes here, I can protect this, but I cannot protect this pawn. So when she takes this pawn on the next move, then these pieces are hanging. This piece is either hanging with check and then grab the knight, or if I move the bishop, which I couldn't move it anywhere, So that was a totally game-ending move right there. She moved down here. I'm assuming she's lining up this check. I know my knight's protecting for now, but I moved the knight out to try to blockade that open file. She brings the knight over, of course, forking my knight and queen. I scoot over and grab the pawn. She grabs that knight, which I'm assuming a discover attack here, that if I go there, she goes there, we get the queens off the board. She's also got that, and she's got that. So I couldn't take with the pawn, so she's going to be up more material. The only move I saw was this queen to check, and that gives me an opportunity to bring her to grab the knight. So I'm still down the exchange. Grabs the free pawn. I move up, putting pressure on this pawn. I'm assuming I'm going to lose that one. She moves the king out of the way. I grab that pawn. Goes for a check. I move up. Grabs that pawn. I didn't want her taking any more pawns, so I move back here. She moves the king back, and I play a4, which I thought was an important move to block this pawn that's over here by itself, and kind of tie the bishop and pawn together to where I've got a good outpost here that they can't really mess with it right now. They move the queen back, offering another trade. I declined. Check. I move down. Slides over. She's preparing this rook to move into the game. I move the queen down here to keep the rook off this square. He goes back. I'm going to try to force this queen trade. I move back. She moves out of the way again. Same thing. I move back, keep the rook out of that C square. She goes here. It's a really good idea. Go there and there. That way she can protect this move next time, and I can't keep her out of that square. So I move back up here. Drops the check in. I went here instead of there because she could slide back and put me in check, and then I've got to move the pawn up, or I've got to block with my queen and trade off. So I come on this side, and then I go down. She moves a pawn up. So I'm thinking here I'm kind of down. There's 14 minutes apiece on this game, so I knew I was in kind of a bad spot here. The king can kind of escape on all these dark squares that I can't really get to with my bishop, so I've got to keep my queen back here to protect some of the king issues I've got. So we kind of danced around. But I thought this was a mistake, this move. She moves king to g7, which I thought was a mistake. As long as she stayed on that dark square, I couldn't get close right here. So I'll move that down. She can't go back because that's checkmate. This is coming as a check soon, so that moves up. This would have been a great move if it wasn't protected. So I'm still kind of like just hoping something good happens. I moved down here so I could keep it on this square, and now I'm attacking that square with check. That piece moves up. I move the queen back over, so now I'm eyeballing this square. I'm still protecting my squares. Still protecting these squares, and I'm coming here next. So slides the rook over. I put the queen in. We go dancing with check. So we danced around all these checks. I knew I was in good shape with that pawn there, and this opened up because I can just keep going in a circle. And anytime that they bring the second piece in, if they drop this second piece in and I step up and they can't put me in check no more, then I'm gonna be in a really good spot right here, right? So she allowed the repetition of just dancing around until I got a threefold repetition and we drew the game. So I was glad to have this game drawn. I made the mistake early letting the bishop land here, and that cost me being behind an exchange pretty much the whole game. And I was glad to get a draw out of a bad game. Game number 4. This game is another name I'll try not to butcher and mispronounce, but they were rated about 1600 provisional. I believe the name was Akil Gitaluri. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but that's who I were playing. I was playing black, and we played another old Sicilian game. So I'm going to kind of breeze through the first part of this. It was pretty standard, no exchanges hardly. Pretty standard game up to. I like my position here, having the two bishops over here, kind of putting a lot of pressure. Brought the queen to the other side to try to help out. This was a mistake. I went to queen d2 here, and I got in deep looking at this square. I could always pull back to here if I need to, but looking back, it just didn't work out the way I wanted to. Now, when he moved that rook there, I should have came back here and basically forced these queens off the board. Instead, I came over here to try to stay working on this side. So when he put his queen there, I was really worried about this move. I got a weak pawn. I didn't want him in tight right here with, this is here, this is here. And if you're down here, you're looking at this. So I'm trying to work on this bishop. This move here, I spent a lot of time on this move. Takes, bring the rook up. The bishop goes back, bring the pawn up now. What does white do here? So I spent a lot of time on this. That is the direction it went. We went here with this move. I couldn't. My rook was tied to this pawn because of this. So I could move this over, but I was getting a little low on pieces that could protect over here. So I moved I moved the queen back there to keep protection on this pawn, excuse me, and to battery that pawn. He just moves up, so I spent some more time thinking here, takes and probably takes, and he's pretty much solidified that pawn and that bishop to this diagonal. So I thought I would just take a chance and push this pawn. So I thought if I push this pawn, if he slides over, then I can slide over, and then I can push it all the way up to here with no real issue, and then maybe I can bring the queen in. If the pawn's on this square and the queen's on this one, maybe I can move it in here and cause a little issue right there. So when I move that up, he moves it over. That forces me in here to protect. When he doubled up, I backed the rook back to protect this square and give me a square to come into with the queen. So I knew I was going to lose that pawn, or lose that, but I thought I could grab this pawn. Well, then I was worried about, now I've allowed the rooks to double up to come back to here. So I could move the rook back here, and then, you know, if he takes, then I have to take over here, and that allows the queen to take this piece, then bring the rook in, and I was in a lot of trouble. Of course, if he would have taken me, I guess I could have taken that one first with check, now that I look at it. But at the time, that's what I was thinking. They're going to load up too much stuff on here. So I made a blunder of a move here by playing g6. So the reason this is a blunder is because he can just take g6. I cannot take back because I'm pinned. And I didn't see that at the time. I thought, I'm going to push him. He can't go there and he can't go there. He'll have to go all the way back to here. Then I'm going to move my king up, and then I'm going to move my pawn up, was my thoughts. So when he did that, I moved my king up, and then he dropped his rook down here. I should have immediately traded, but I thought the queen's going to come back in with check. Actually, I should have dropped this rook back. I should have dropped that rook back. But I didn't. I moved that pawn up to try to get rid of this pin. And another blunder allowed that check, and that's just checkmate. I mean, I can move that there, I can move that there. Both of them are going to be taken. So checkmate on the board, and another loss. So now I'm sitting at a win, a loss. That should have been a draw, and then a loss. And that was a bad game, but it didn't aggravate me as bad as the missed draw and ending on the game 2. That was an easy draw. I got loose and just made a terrible mistake. This game, I just looking back on it, I just got outplayed, frankly. So moving on to game 5. Game 5 was against user TNEMTP. Not sure what that spells. 27586. The name was William. Rated around 1400 on their provisionary ratings. So this is the last game. You know, we've been dropped from coverage because I'm sitting at 1.5 out of 4. So this is the last game. Try to win on a good note. We did another Queen's Gambit Slav setup. So fairly normal setup here. I went ahead and took the knight, doubled up the pawns, put through in a check. I just moved the knight over. He took, I took, and now I'm attacking this pawn with 3 pieces. We go ahead and take. We leave that pawn there. He takes, we take. We're lining up a battery here. I just moved that back. They can't take now. Move that over. I moved the knight over, so now we got 4 pieces attacking this, only 3 defending. So I should have just taken that and kind of traded some pieces off here, but I was trying to play solid on this last game because I really wanted to go out with a win. So in this position, this pawn is hanging, so I kind of expected this play. Played the knight there, so I took the pawn, moved the queen back to get rid of this pin. So I just went ahead and took that, since now I'm guarding it with this. We swap off a couple pieces. He goes there, kind of a tricky move here with your queen. I'll block that. He slides over. I slide over here, attacking the knight. He brings it back. Drop back a step. Pretty standard play, I suppose, for this. I took some time on this move as well. He put me in check. I could have blocked with this. I could have, you know, blocked with this pawn. I could have blocked with this pawn. I could have just moved the king back here. But I thought it was a good opportunity to just push that. I pushed him out of the way. He slides over. Now that I'm up a couple pawns, it's 7 pawns to 5. I thought it was not in his best interest to offer the queen swap. We did the queen swap. I brought my rook to the middle, pushed the pawns. I just keep pushing pawns here. At this point, I thought a little bit too. I'm ahead. I thought, I can sacrifice this by just playing this move. If he takes, and I take queen with check. So I just push on. The king comes over. This is another where I made a mistake in the end of this game. I thought about this for a few minutes. I'm not really worried about this guy. The smart move here, after looking back on this game, the smart move was to go up one, put him in check. He would have had to move here, and then I could have queened this piece, since the king is so far away now. If I queen this piece, takes, and with my pawn in this square now, take back with queen, I've traded a pawn for a rook. He would have took back there, but I mean, it's pretty easy to, make a couple of checks, pick the knight up. But instead, I thought that was a good idea. I put a check, he moves over, I move up one, and I bring the knight into play. He takes there. I thought pretty serious about just, he's pinned, so I thought I need to get some more pieces involved. I'm going to attack this pawn over here. I want to put him in check. Take another pawn. Check. Eyeball another pawn. And he made a blunder here with knight to c2, allowing this rook check to pick up the knight. I grab that, and he basically goes to the corner. So usually when someone goes to the corner like that, knowing they can't take this piece or play in this square, I'm assuming they're going to move their pawns up and give this up and try to get a stalemate option. So I grab that pawn, he moves the pawn over, I come into the game, he moves that pawn over, and then that's checkmate. So I did win the last game, so I ended up with 2.5 out of 5. 2 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses in my first event that was using USCF ratings. It was part of the Tennessee Chess Association in 15 years. So to me, I felt pretty good. I'm kind of hoping that all these opponents I played were not like 8-year-old kids, because sometimes it seemed like that when I heard some other people in the chat rooms talking about them. So I kind of felt like at 40 I may have been the oldest person playing, I don't know, by 20 years. But either way, I had a good time. 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw for the 2020 Tennessee State Championship, and that's my recap. I had a good time. I think I finished tied for 13th or 14th out of 30-something players. At least I didn't lose all the games. Had a great time. I hope that they do some more events. They're thinking about doing the Tennessee Speed Chess state tournament online in January, I think. So I'm hoping to be able to play that as well. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll get to play the state tournament next year. Thank you.